call the roll?
Linda Avanzato. Here. John Viscarden.
Here.
Larry Cerisi.
Here.
Cheryl Clarkin. Here. Robert Jones. William Mudge. Kimberly Page.
Here.
Julia Held.
Here.
Thank you.
Doreen, could you please call the calendars?
June 3rd, 6 p.m. School Committee Planning Meeting, Central Administration Building. June 4th, 8:30 a.m. Policy Subcommittee Meeting, Central Administration Building. June 6th, 6 p.m. North Kingstown High School Graduation, Ryan Center. June 9th, Democracy Night. June 10th, Employee Retirement Reception at 6 p.m. in the North Kingstown High School cafeteria. Following that, on June 10th, School Committee Work Session, 7 p.m., North Kingstown High School cafeteria. June 19th, last day of school for all schools except Hamilton and Wickford Middle School. June 20th, last day of school for Hamilton and Wickford Middle School. June 24th, School Committee Business Meeting, North Kingstown High School cafeteria. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have a couple of recognitions and presentations to do tonight. So, Dr. Ajay, if you want to start with the first one.
Mr. Ferrari, would you like to come on up? Well, good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming on out. Tonight it is our honor to celebrate Mr. Ed Ferrario, who is the Rhode Island Principal of the Year for 2014. Round of applause. For anyone that knows Ed, you know that he is absolutely 100% committed to the kids of his school. He has a long 28-year career in North Kingstown, many of those years at Forest Park, and he was part of the team there that brought that school to blue ribbon status. And now, as principal, he's done it again at Stony Lane, leading that school to a blue ribbon. To say this has been quite a year for Mr. Ferrario would be an understatement. We've been to Washington together to celebrate his achievements and the achievements of Stony Lane, and now that has also been recognized for him as well as Rhode Island Principal of the Year, recognized by the Rhode Island Association of School Principals. Dr. Humber, could you read a little bit from what we have received from them?
Described as meticulously thorough and dedicated to leading the school to improve in every area, Mr. Ferrario has a passion for excellence, which he shares with all of the Stony Lane school community. Colleague principals in North Kingstown share that Mr. Ferrario excels as an educator and a leader. They note his proactive planning, his leadership by example, and his level of focus and commitment, along with his ability to use resources creatively. And I would be remiss if I did not add, at the end of this, perhaps the clearest indicator of Principal Ferrario's excellence as an educational leader is the fact that he was unanimously nominated for this award by his faculty. That nomination speaks volumes regarding the highly effective, collaborative leader of Stony Lane School that he is.
We are more than privileged in this district to have you working for us, Mr. Ferrario, and we very much appreciate it. Congratulations. This award here, you're thinking Ed's going to take this and go home with it. No, he is not. This is going to go up in the central office near the curriculum office with the Teachers of the Year and other celebrated winners of such awards, and he'll be part of history here in North Kingstown from here on in. And there is a dinner for him and the other Principals of the Year for different levels tomorrow night at the Radisson. So I'll be doing yet another speech at that point for him, and I'm glad to do so. So congratulations, Mr. Ferrario. You deserve it, and thank you for all you do for the North Kingstown School Department.
For those out in the audience who know me, I'm not in the limelight. I don't like this attention, but I'll take it because I know how hard I work and how hard all the teachers in North Kingstown work, and especially the teachers at Stony Lane, each and every day benefiting the children that attend our school. Together, we built a team. We have a great culture at our school, and we're proud to work together and help each other solve problems that we come across each and every day. And so I'm thankful for being at Stony Lane. I'm thankful for working in North Kingstown for 28 years. And thankful for making many friends over the years that I've known. And it's much appreciated that many of you have come out this evening. The teachers had a breakfast for me last Thursday. Tomorrow night's a dinner. I can't wait for it to all be over so I can get back to my work. But thank you again for coming out, and I appreciate all your kind words.
You got to do the reception line.
Thank you. One of our other presentations and recognitions this evening is the school committee. The school district would like to recognize one of our clubs, the Best Buddies Club. In a moment, I'm going to have a couple of the students from the Best Buddies Club come up and give a brief overview of a description of the club and what the club's mission is. And I can tell you this from a first-hand experience myself. This is a group of students who do truly magical work, and we could never pay enough recognition to. And they go largely unnoticed because it is a small group and a small club, but the work that they do is incredible. So I'm going to have Jody and Kate come on up and give a brief overview of exactly what the club is about and some of the things that they've done this year with students in our community.
Thank you. My name is Kate DeAngelis. And I'm Jody Wadovic. And the mission of Best Buddies International is to establish a global volunteer movement that creates opportunities for one-to-one relationships, integrated employment, and leadership development for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. In our club, the buddies have about 2 to 3 peer partners, but in our group settings, they socialize with everyone. In addition, the peer partners meet about every month to plan the activities. Under the leadership of myself and Kate DeAngelis and Miss Graham and Mr. Fanning, we organize game days and craft days, and we go bowling. Also, we had the spring fling, which was my senior project. And we go to the unified basketball games and volleyball games to cheer on. And today was the final event, and we had a field day. And we played soccer and wiffle ball. And at North Kingstown, our integrated classes, such as PE, foods, and advisories, prepare our students really well for Best Buddies membership. The peer partners are respectful, engaging, and above all fun. Whatever the club does, there's no shortage of laughter on every part. And next year, we look forward to having an even stronger club under the leadership of Kendall Durney and Ashley Layton.
Thank you. I could say that the spring fling that Jody did for her senior project with the Best Buddies Club was, I know, an evening that she'll never forget, and an evening that I know the parents and the students will never forget. It was truly a great event, complete with the DJ, photos, refreshments, and all sorts of activities. It was just a great experience. And lastly, that the work that the students do in the Best Buddies Clubs goes far beyond the school day and forging relationships with their partners and their buddies outside of the school day, evenings, weekends. It's truly amazing work. So, I hope this is something that obviously the district can and will continue and support and continue to put some resources into and keep recognizing the work that these students do. So, thank you. And we're just going to, I know we have a few here tonight and a few missing, so it's running out of hands. We have Kate DeAngelis. Jody Watervick. Kelly Roberts. Casey Seymour. Not here. Alex Thatch. Not here. Ashley Leonton. Zach Haynes. Alex Overly. Kendall Durney. I'm sorry. And last we have Hannah Black. And I'd also be remiss if I don't recognize two teachers that are the advisors to the Best Buddies, Miss Graham and Mr. Fanning. So thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for all your work and guiding this club this year. So greatly appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Well, that brings us to our next item on the agenda, and the North Kingstown Prevention Coalition recognition will be for our next meeting that we have. We have the concert choir tonight, and so we were having some conflicts with that, and so it brings us to the technology report. So, Dr. Ajay.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to welcome Mr. Keith Gillette. Mr. Gillette is from Educational Collaborators, and as the members of the committee know, I'm not sure if everyone in the audience knows, earlier this school year, the school committee approved working with Educational Collaborators to do a comprehensive study of North Kingstown in regards to its use of educational technology. We're eager to have a comprehensive plan that will guide our thinking as we move forward wherever we go in terms of using technology in the classrooms, where there's obviously a realization that technology is consuming all of us in terms of our communication with one another. And communication in school is no different, and it becomes a part of your preparedness for life. And it should be a part of what schools prepare students to do. So before leaping into this in all kinds of different haphazard ways, we wanted to have a report to guide our thinking. The report that we have will then move to a comprehensive 5-year plan, which I hope to have in front of the school committee in a few weeks. So without any further ado, I'm going to let Mr. Gillette come on up and talk to you about the results of his report.
Thank you, Dr. Ajay. Hello, Dr. Hubbard. Good evening. Thanks for inviting me to present tonight. Let me call up a few slides to bore you with to summarize our report. As I was introduced, my name is Keith Gillette, and I represent a team from Educational Collaborators. And before I get into the findings of the report, I'd just like to spend a minute talking about Educational Collaborators so you understand the context from which this report comes. Educational Collaborators is a national consulting firm that's focused solely on K-12 education technology, and we are comprised almost exclusively of current practitioners. So, for example, I've been IT director at 2 different schools, and the rest of the team are all educators, either currently in schools or have been involved in technology or in leadership or in curriculum integration in schools. So we think this makes us uniquely qualified to collaborate with the leadership of other schools in developing the plans and programs that will prepare your students for 21st century careers and lives. And we specialize in strategic planning, tech integration, and professional development. So this is this type of report that North Kingstown engaged us to do is one of our primary engagements. So with that background, let me just talk to you a couple of minutes about the goals for the engagement. The primary goals were first to develop a shared understanding among the various stakeholders at NKSD, the administration, faculty, and parents of the current state of the IT program here at North Kingstown, the perceptions of each of those constituencies of the program, and goals for the program moving forward. Second goal was to provide a platform for improvement of the program at NKSD that's based on data collection. And so we performed a survey that can be used as a longitudinal assessment tool going forward, and I'll get more into that. A third goal was to provide, of course, high-level guidance, as Dr. Auger pointed out, to drive more detailed planning at the school level. And to assist with that planning, we provided a number of strategic resources and planning frameworks in the report for the school to consider as it makes its detailed plans. So just to summarize the process that we went through, we started with conversations with the leadership to do some preliminary planning. I came on site to represent our team to do focus groups with constituents that included students, high school students, IT staff, administration, faculty and staff across schools, and parent representatives across the various schools in the district. We took that raw material, the themes that emerged from that, and went through a process of goal development with the North Kingstown leadership and set a vision statement to summarize the direction to use going forward. Conducted a constituent survey based on surveys that we have done in similar situations to provide benchmarks against which to measure your progress going forward, and engaged in professional development planning, deployment planning, and finally prepared the technology planning and change management report that I'm here to present to you this evening. So starting with that focus group, I just want to talk about a few of the themes that emerged there and how they drove the rest of the process. I would say that primarily from our initial contact with constituents, that 4 themes emerged. First was that your current technology program is perhaps not at the same blue ribbon level as the rest of your educational program at North Kingstown. That is, it's in a deficit state. The second related, I think, theme that emerged from those conversations was that really more sustainable funding was needed for the program, funding that didn't rely on one-time grants or PTO purchases to fund technology purchases, but an ongoing plan and budget to support a technology program that equaled the rest of the program that NKSD schools have before them. A third was that the district needed to articulate a detailed student technology skills scope and sequence to drive the education of students in the use of technology, a scope and sequence that would align, of course, with Common Core and PARCC testing requirements. And the fourth theme that I think emerged and was definitely echoed in the survey was that there's really strong interest in the use of technology. As Dr. Ajay said at the beginning, technology is transforming our society, the way we communicate, and it is transforming the way we educate as well. So there's strong interest among all constituent groups in effective use of technology in the classroom. So out of that background, we developed a vision statement to guide the plan going forward. And that vision, of course, is to do with academic achievement and the building of 21st century skills through the purposeful alignment of pedagogy, and the end goal being the graduation of responsible digital citizens. So very much in line with the mission of North Kingstown schools. A series of goals were developed then to support that vision, and those were rolled up into sort of 4 high-level goals. One on operational excellence in bringing the technology program and its execution through with excellence. A second to do with continuously improving the learning environment on the faculty and instruction side. A third on student learning. And a fourth on parent communication and communication within the district. Each of these goals was broken down into more detailed objectives. And I won't go through and read each and every one of these. These are laid out in the plan, but I'll just comment briefly on the detailed goals, because these, I think, will be driving forward the plans that the district should roll out in the 5-year implementation that Dr. Ajay has mentioned. So, as I said, the first cluster of goals are creating an implementation plan and ensuring that you have sustainable IT funding to execute that plan, and centralizing and harmonizing technology procurement so that you don't have pockets of excellence that are unsustainable and don't translate into learning across all grades and across all schools. The second cluster of objectives focus on the role of technology with faculty and instruction. And key among those is providing mobile devices for every teacher. And I can tell you, having worked in many schools, having done 2 one-to-one computing rollouts, that providing faculty with the professional tools that information workers are used to is absolutely essential. So providing the mobile tool, and then, of course, the professional development and instruction will be key to translating the use of technology into the classroom, because that teacher comfort level and the teacher proficiency with the use of technology will be the foundation on which the improvements in student learning that you want to have as your eventual outcome are going to be based on. The other key objectives in the instructional side are increasing reliable network and internet access, which was identified during the focus groups and also highlighted in the survey as an area of deficit in certain areas. And that is already underway. I know I've talked with Rich a number of times, and this district is taking advantage. Richard Booth, the Network and Systems Administrator, and this district is already taking advantage of the Rhode Island Wireless Initiative, and one of our primary recommendations is that the school extend beyond the RIDE-provided technology to build a strong platform. The third cluster of objectives focus on the role of technology with students and student learning. And key among these is the development, as I mentioned before, of a strong district-wide scope and sequence for student technology skills that is integrated into teaching and learning with the professional development for faculty to back that up. And recommendations or goals to provide students with engaging learning experiences that involve real-world problems, and professional development for faculty that provides them with background in project-based and problem-based learning. And I think by the time we got to the fourth cluster, all of the detailed sub-goals wore everyone out, and there are none on this page. So that's a bad joke, but clearly that was the primary thing that Dr. Auger mentioned, that communication and collaboration are greatly enhanced by the use of technology. And I think there are some very interesting findings from the survey that we did of parents and other constituents that the school can use to leverage technology to improve communication both within its walls and to the broader community. So let me turn to that survey now. The survey was developed in coordination with the district leadership and distributed to all constituents, to students and to parents and to staff and administration and to faculty. And the goal of the constituent survey was to establish a baseline for progress across multiple dimensions. So in all, we received great response. 866 responses were collected across those groups from all the schools in the district and from across all constituencies. So you have excellent representation this first time around, and I would commend the school for that, and I would strongly hope that you'll be able to continue that level of participation in the future and use this as a tool to mark your progress as you implement changes. So a few key highlights. There are, in the appendix of the report, some detailed breakdowns of some of the more interesting findings, and I don't have time to go into each of those in detail. And of course, the full results of the survey are available and will be useful for benchmarking going forward. But I wanted to provide a few highlights on what came out of the report. And those are summarized on this slide, that while there's strong interest in the effective use of technology in classroom across all constituencies, there's also strong concern about the use of technology and, in particular, safety, student safety, privacy, issues of cyberbullying, and the potential loss of classroom time to digital distraction or to non-functioning equipment. So very, very natural use of concerns that we see across many schools. I certainly have not been in a school where all of those were not concerns going into any technology deployment. A second highlight was that teacher skill and comfort level with the use of technology varies widely, resulting in what's perceived as inconsistent use of technology in the classroom. Again, very common, and every school that I've worked with has the same issue. Students and teachers both come in at different levels, and finding ways to bring them up to a consistent level is a key concern for all schools. Your teachers currently report a low to moderate weekly use of technology in the classroom, and state that they rarely, if ever, use technology to have students learn an essential skill, and do not frequently communicate with teachers or collaborate with other students using technology. So that breakdown is more interesting when you look at it across individual schools and individual grade levels, but that is one of the stronger points to look at, I think, is currently, because of the deficit state of technology, I think you have fairly low adoption of technology as an instructional tool. Turning to the parent side, it's interesting to note that parents strongly prefer communication from the school by email over other forms of communication. And parents also share communication concerns about the accuracy and currency of the information that's currently on school-hosted websites. Turning finally to students, students report a very strong desire to learn, to use technology more often, and that definitely came across in my interviews with the democracy class that I was fortunate to do when I was here on campus. But they report a low level of computer use on a weekly basis and are concerned about the reliability of equipment, which is often aging equipment and not always seem to be in working order. Students believe that they have a high level of computer skills, and they report that most of this is self-taught. So those are some highlights from the survey. What our team did then is we took the themes that emerged from the focus group that I highlighted. We took the goals and objectives that were developed then from those themes to address the issues, and we took the data from the Constituent Survey and used it to produce the recommendations and report that I'll turn to shortly. The report opens with some key observations, which I've primarily highlighted already either in the focus group highlights or in the survey highlights, so I won't spend time repeating myself here. And then the report turns to a series of recommendations. So there's a lot of detail in the report, which I think runs to some 70 pages, 73. But to give you a quick summary of what we think are some of the most important recommendations, let me move through a few slides, and then I will open up for questions that you have. So key recommendations on instruction are to examine the curriculum and current use of pedagogy for technology use and 21st century skills, given the importance of technology in the emerging economy. And again, as noted before, to identify and develop a scope and sequence for technology content and skills that was called out as a goal. And our report provides some specific guidance on developing a scope and sequence. As highlighted before, working with real-world projects, as called out in the goals, facilitating electronic curriculum delivery by leveraging the school's learning management system and putting more content up there. And of course, being able to receive that digital curriculum implies student devices, which is a later recommendation in order to be able to access the curriculum that might be provided on a learning management system. And to provide opportunities for faculty to share among themselves. So providing student artifacts that are produced digitally and venues for faculty to be able to learn from one another. Again, in alignment with the vision and goals, developing a digital citizenship charter and curriculum to support not only students but parents in helping students cope with the new realities of technology in a safe and responsible fashion is a key recommendation. And the report outlines a number of very useful resources for the district to turn to in developing such a curriculum. Managing digital distraction, a related goal. Professional development to support all of the other goals is a key recommendation, and there's a large section in the report that deals with professional development methods and professional development opportunities that will bring up bring your teachers up to a more consistent level where you have a strong baseline of technology proficiency among all faculty. And as I mentioned before, I think it's extremely important that as a key component, faculty have access to the technology that they're expected to use. So providing a mobile device, a notebook, or a tablet to all teaching staff is a primary recommendation from the report. And then moving down to students, using the grade level objectives that come out of a curriculum planning process with the scope and sequences to determine the grade level hardware purchases for students and what model that would be. And the report outlines a couple of alternatives for that at each grade level, and I think that the results from the survey give you good insight into the current faculty thinking and parent thinking at what point a particular number of devices, a 1-to-1 ratio of students to computers, becomes appropriate. So I think that will be a valuable planning tool for you as you move forward. The final recommendations turn toward IT operations and more technical details. While the educational program is the mission of the school and the reason that you would do any of this in the first place, the base layer of a strong foundation of technology operations has to be in place. And that, I think, is one of the critical deficit areas that NKSD needs to address in order to bring its technology program up to a point that equals the rest of its offerings. And so these recommendations are fairly straightforward: to develop a replacement cycle so that you have functioning and well-performing equipment in the buildings and in the classrooms. To install the building-wide wireless network, a project that is, I know, already underway, but this is critical just to provide access, to put the right plumbing in place, and it's not a initially visible use of time and money, but is absolutely essential. So I commend NKSD for moving forward with the Rhode wireless initiative, and the report strongly recommends that you extend beyond that to build out that base layer of technology infrastructure to a point where you have a very stable system in place. And that will require replacing additional network switches that are not covered by the current Rhode Island Department of Education Wireless Initiative funds. Among other recommendations are to replace and virtualize existing servers on which your current services are running, and some of these recommendations I know should allow for faster performance with cost savings going forward, because you'll need fewer servers overall virtualizing it. I think there are also other opportunities for cost savings by partnering for services, or exploring the possibility of partnering for services with the City of North Kingstown or other local providers. But there are other items that will represent additional costs for the district that I think are also essential for an effective technology rollout. Another key recommendation is to hire a district-wide technology educator to facilitate the development of the curriculum for the students and coordinate the provision of professional development for the faculty to support that. And this investment, I think, is a critical component. If you're going to increase the use of technology, you can't just purchase the devices, you have to provide the services on top of that. In addition, having well-trained library media specialists to support this rollout can give you building-level support that is coordinated by this district-level technology educator. And finally, another key recommendation that would represent an additional cost would be to increase the number of IT staff that you currently have. So we learned during the course of investigation that the staff had been cut during, your IT staff had been cut during the economic downturn. And I think that any additional technology rollout is going to require additional human resources to support those, both on the academic side and professional development, as I talked about, but also on the operational and support side to ensure that you have devices that are in working order and a network that is there and always available to support teaching and learning. So that brings me to the end of the primary recommendations of the report. There's a lot more detail of various level and recommendations for timelines, but I think I've gone on long enough, so I want to open it up for any questions the school committee might have.
Mr. Cerisi.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Chair. And, thank you for the presentation.
My pleasure.
Just a couple of comments, not so much questions. Just
Yes.
expand or touch upon a couple
Yes.
of areas that you had presented. I think one of the challenges for the committee and the administration in the district as a whole, and I'm sure other districts experience the same challenge, is having the financial buy-in from the community and from those who allocate funds to the school district to have the understanding that there is going to be a large, substantially large upfront cost to do some of these things and to make some of these conversions, but down the road there is a savings involved after you make that initial upfront investment. So I think that's one of the challenges that we've struggled with, and having people to have that foresight to see beyond that initial investment, especially at times like the district and the whole state has gone through over the last several years, the financial challenges. So, and going along with that is the IT staff, the cuts that we as a committee made several years ago to the IT staff for budgetary reasons, obviously. I look back on those cuts and I think there are many cuts that I regret having to make, but those cuts rank among some of the tops because I have seen the long-term effect of those cuts, and I think it's held us back in several areas in the district, not only technology-wise but educational-wise. And that goes hand in hand with the other point that you touched on, is professional development. For our staff, support staff, for our classroom teachers, and, not just in school districts, but, I see it in the professional world, in the business world as well. You get the, here's your new computer, good luck, and that just leaves for a lot of frustration, and rather than saving time, using the device and the technology to save time or increase efficiency, we often find that it turns into more of a nightmare and eats up a lot of the time in the classrooms. Yes. and in the business world, and yes. So having that support in place, the IT support staff in place, the professional development, the training in place, it's all integral part of the puzzle. Doing one without the other is fruitless. We could spend all the money in the world on purchasing equipment, but if we don't provide the training to go along with it, it's, and I've actually been on the receiving end, of here's your new equipment, good luck, you know. So I understand that frustration, you know. Thank you.
Thank you. May I take a moment just to
Yes, please.
expand and respond? I think those are extremely insightful comments from that resonate with my experience at the other schools that I've worked with. And I think of technology in schools like a pyramid, right? At that top level is the mission-driven use of technology in teaching and learning, and that's the reason you're doing everything. But that is supported by a number of other layers below that. You have to have, in order for that to work at all, the faculty who have the expertise not only in the instruction of students in pedagogy, but in the use of technology. And for that to be the case, they have to have the professional development support to get the skill level that you want for that mission-driven learning to happen. And you also, of course, have to have the devices in place, and you're currently dealing with a lot of old equipment that's shared equipment and not always accessible to students. So just having the devices out there is a bare technology level. And then there's a layer of plumbing below that, all of the wires in the walls and the switches in the closets that only the systems administrators, only the IT staff sees, and the wireless access points. And those have limited lifespans, and they need care and feeding just like any other system in the school, just like the physical plumbing, and the boilers have to have regular maintenance and have to be swapped out on a regular cycle. All of that technology equipment has to be swapped out and has to be maintained by a staff that knows what they're doing. And the staff, I think, has been stretched very thin over the past few years because you've made very hard decisions about where to put your money, and that's something that many schools are facing. Programs that you don't want to cut. You'd have been just regretting something else, perhaps at this point, but I think it has had an impact on certainly the technology program, and also as that impacts your ability as a set of schools to provide the best quality instruction and learning for your students, it's having an impact there as well.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? Mr. Biscarden.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Thank you for the very in-depth report you provided us. I think that's going to lend us well when making decisions on how to move forward. I do have a few questions on some of the information you had up there, however.
Sure.
You mentioned a couple points, a couple different times about the devices. Will you be able to provide minimum specifications of what the devices need to have? Similarly to like when kids enroll in college, the colleges typically provide a couple different options on the types of laptops or tablets that they use with minimum specifications needed to work in their network. I was wondering if you'd be able to provide that to us as well.
Let me speak to that. I think that we certainly can provide a set of specifications given a set of educational objectives. So the way I approach equipment specifications is that you have to look at what you want to accomplish in the classroom. What are the educational objectives for using the device in the classroom? And those sorts of activities that the teachers want to use to be able to provide instruction to students then drive a set of functional specifications, what the device has to do. If we're going to use this application, we have to have a device that has this much, this size screen. We can't have a little mobile device because the simulation won't run on, a handheld computer. And then from those sets of functional specifications, you can build out technical specifications fairly easily and then do your model selection. So because one of the recommendations is you develop that scope and sequence, which would give you that set of educational objectives, I don't think you're necessarily ready at this point across all grade levels, across all schools, to say this is the minimum that you can provide and jump right to the technical specification level. But we would be happy to go to that level of detail based on working with other schools.
Okay. You had mentioned one of your bullet points on one of your last slides was district-wide technology educator. That could be, from a layperson's standpoint, that could be interpreted a couple different ways. And I was wondering what specifically you meant by a district-wide technology educator.
I think the recommendation here is for a position that would provide the education technology integration leadership for the district to facilitate the process of developing the technology skills, scope, and sequence, and coordinate professional development for faculty, and to work with library media specialists or through some other structure to provide additional building level support for the use of technology. So it's an option to consider, but we believe that you need some additional education focused technology support.
So is this like a train-the-trainer type person, where this person is going to be training the teachers who are then going to instruct the kids using the technology? Is that what this person, is that how you see this?
Yes, that's how I would articulate it, and that's one model for providing additional support. Clearly, you can't have one person who's doing direct instruction to all the students who need to learn a particular skill across the entire district.
And so that person, I guess then that person would be responsible for the overall training and development of the staff. Right. Is that how you see that?
I think that's fair, yes.
And then how would the library media specialist fall into that? Because it seems like there's a redundancy there, trained to support district-wide technology efforts. So are they also going to be working under the auspices of the technology educator then?
That is one model. I think that you want in each building a go-to person for questions and for resources, and there's a natural alliance between library information literacy, and because so much of that information is now accessed electronically, between the digital skills that are needed to access online resources in the web and using computers. So because of that overlap, that was a group that was identified as potentially being able to provide an additional layer of support for faculty in using technology.
Anywhere, based on, again, you kind of answered this question, but I just want to make sure that that answer pertains to this question, that you had mentioned that to specify devices, you need to have, you need to do some groundwork and determine what's going to be done before you can, how they're going to be used before you can specify them. Will you use that same line of thinking if for servers? I mean, would you specify? Are you going to specify any hardware in this process? Is there any hardware specifications that would come from you at all?
Okay. Sorry. The scope of our engagement didn't allow us to go down to that level of granularity. So it provided direction on each of those levels. And I will say, to follow up on the first question on the devices, some of that is driven not by the pure educational objectives that might come out of a scope and sequence, but as the report identifies, is driven by the requirements of the Common Core Park tests, that there are minimum specifications that that testing application, the online test for park tests, dictates, and the school's already responded to that by purchasing some new mobile devices that meet those specifications. And there are a number of options that are already published by Rhode that I think will probably guide most of the decisions. But beyond that, you'd want to have educational objectives to refine that at each grade level. And to the overall question of specifications for network equipment and for servers, we gave general recommendations, but it's outside the scope of this engagement to dive down and do the bandwidth analysis and do the load analysis, and that would be required to really say you need this level of server, this many processors, this much RAM. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mrs. Avanzato.
Yes, thank you very much. Appreciate your report. And I think we've all agreed we need to get something comprehensive kind of for the whole district that we can follow, that we can use as a roadmap for the next however many years. And I would agree with some of the comments that Mr. Cerisi made about cuts we've made in the past in the technology area. I think we really felt like we had nowhere else to go, but you can see how it catches up to you. One of my questions, I noticed in the recommendations, you have providing notebooks or tablets to the teachers. I didn't see any specific reference to providing it to the students, but I know you do talk about replacement cycles and students using them, so what's the situation with the students? Are you recommending that for students as well?
I think that is a decision that the district has to make on a grade level by grade level basis, what your deployment model is. In my experience, you absolutely need to start with the faculty. You need to provide them with the professional tools so that when it comes to being in the classroom, they've got the comfort level and they've got the expertise to be able to use technology effectively and guide students to use technology effectively. The report doesn't make a specific recommendation that you should go one-to-one at X grade level across all districts, but clearly there's a need for additional student technology, and I think that the specific grade levels at which you might provide one device per student, which is a more and more common method of providing technology because it is so essential, and providing a shared computer lab or a shared computer cart simply doesn't give the level of access anymore. That's a decision that you'll need to address and roll out in the 5-year plan.
I guess I like, obviously, life cycle and replacements of devices. That's very important because we haven't had anything like that, and then all of a sudden we look up and we have half Mac and half PC, and we're, all mixed up. So we need to all get on the same page, and doing that will help us. Did you take into account other districts in Rhode Island when you're looking at where they're at? I'm just curious with their technology.
Tell me more, Linda, about taking into account
other school districts and where they're at. Do they use?
Oh, did we benchmark against other school districts? Not as a part of the scope of this project. So this project was informed by similar work at a couple of other districts who had done similar engagements, but there was not a direct benchmark comparison with other districts.
One thing I think would be useful and that I kind of expected would be an idea what the life cycle would be if we chose to go with certain devices. Like when would we look to replace certain kinds of notepads, certain kinds of devices, something like that.
And we did include that for server and network, and I can definitely take that back as a recommendation that we would include that. I think it's fairly standard that it's a 3 to 4 year replacement cycle, best practice for an end user device. With a desktop computer, I think you can extend that to 5 years.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mrs. Clarkin?
Again, thank you. This was a very informative overview that you put together. One question I have is, under the recommendations, you said that we should consider reducing operational costs with a partnership with the town, which is something I've always thought we should explore, some kind of collaboration to, consolidate certain services to save on costs. I'm wondering if you'll be able to provide us with any examples or ideas of what those partnerships could look like, and if any other districts that you've consulted with have, had anything similar to that.
I don't have personal experience in that area. I can go back and try to provide the district with some of that information. I would say that as a broad level guidance, what you see is effective is shared services on the level of the technical infrastructure and backbone, perhaps either on providing a disaster recovery coverage from one site to another. So, for example, if you have a set of servers hosted by the district and the town has a set of servers, providing storage for one another at your opposite sites, instead of paying an outsourced provider to do that, and then just transferring data back and forth so that if the town has an outage, they have access to the servers here. If the school has an outage, they have access to the servers over there. And similar level storage and server monitoring services might be an area that you could share services because that's a very technical and increasingly commoditized service. What gets very difficult, I think, for schools to share with anyone else is anything from that infrastructure layer up, because it's not like you can outsource the same sort of office help desk support for what's happening in the classroom in a school. That's very different, and that needs to be individualized to a school. So those are the sort of broad level recommendations I would make in exploring any potential partnership with an outside organization like the city.
Thank you.
Before I comment, are there any other questions? Great. Mr. Gillette, it's the sort of thing, this has been very informative. When you first started talking and you were first going through the recommendations, I was thinking, well, how do we do that? How do we make sure that we have everybody getting up to professional proficiencies? How do we make sure that we're having students in a very engaging learning environment? And then as you came to as you were giving more of the recommendations and you were talking about hiring the IT people, having somebody who's a specialist, I thought, aha, so this is our map, and we need to go next step of then saying, this is what we want to do. How we get there is determined upon who we hire and them leading the rest of that way. And so I appreciated what you put up here of saying, yes, this is our roadmap. It will determine on who we hire as to how we do this. And so it gives us kind of that what are we going to think about for the future and how are we going to expend our resources. But I feel like this is really good in giving us that steps to take for what we need to do. So again, thank you.
I would also like to thank Mr. Gillette and his company. You've been excellent to work with, and I'm very impressed with the quality of the report. As Mrs. Page said, it does give us I'm really astounded by how much there is to consider when making moves like this, from the professional development of the staff to the kind of device that the student would use in math class. And so there is so much to consider, and without a comprehensive plan to guide us, it just would be, it's a daunting task no matter what, but it would be all the more impossible if without such a report. So thank you very much for this. It's going to be very helpful. We're going to be working with it as soon as our next school committee meeting. So
great, thank you. Great, thank you. Best of luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Great. That brings us to the end of our presentations and to citizens' comments. Lorraine, do we have anybody who signed up for citizens' comments? No, okay. Well, unless somebody is rushing to the microphone, we will, and somebody may, I'm not stopping you, but seeing no one doing that, we'll go on to our superintendent's report. Okay, Dr. Ajay has said he is all set, so that brings us to our routine items. We are not quite finished with our executive session, so we aren't quite ready to seal our executive session minutes from tonight. Mrs. Carroll, do we need to disclose any of our votes right now?
Yes, we might as well, that way we'll be sure.
Lorraine, if you could disclose our executive session votes.
All members were present at tonight's executive session except Larry Cerisi, Bob Jones, and Bill Mudge. Motion by Kimberly Page to accept the superintendent's recommendation regarding a student, seconded by Cheryl Clarkin. Vote was the motion passed 4-0. Motion by Linda Avanzado to accept the superintendent's recommendation with amendments added by the school committee regarding a second student, seconded by Don Biscardin, and the vote was the motion passed 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to the consent agenda. Are there any items to exempt from the consent agenda? Mr. Biscardin.
Yes, I'd like to exempt D1, 2, and 4, please.
Okay. Are there any other items to exempt? Mr. Cerisi.
D6.
Okay. So, Mr. Biscardin, you had 1, 2, and
4.
4. Okay. Mr. Cerisi, you had 6. Is there anything else? Mrs. Avanzado.
F4.
Okay. Okay. F4. Is there anything else? All right. Do I have a motion to approve all other items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. All right, Mr. Biscardin, that brings us to D1.
Actually, we can do 1 and 2, because my
Yes.
questions are the same for both.
Okay, that sounds good.
I noticed, Dr. Humbert, on the attachments, that the box was checked off because this is a single source supplier for these books. Is that right? I'm trying to find it now.
That's correct.
Yeah, sole source. Yeah, why is that? Is McGraw-Hill the only one that publishes these books, or are there other publishers that they just don't meet the criteria?
That's exactly right, what you just said.
They're the only ones.
Which one? I said I had two options. They're the only ones that publish the book, or are they the only ones that publish this? Or are they the only ones that publish?
They're the only ones that met the criteria.
And that being, is that because of the Common Core component, or?
Yeah, there's several components that were considered in selecting these books, and the first thing was that it would meet the curriculum requirements. We've been working on the curriculum for social studies now for 2 years, actually the middle school for which this order has been submitted, the middle school has been requesting materials since I arrived, so we did not want to purchase, however, until we reviewed the social studies curriculum and did that cycle of work, which is near completion now. And that it does incorporate the Common Core as well. So we have, in addition to that, this has a digital component to it, and that's another piece because we're really we're not at a readiness level to go to an e-text, which is where many districts are headed. However, the publishing companies are really not there yet with their readiness, and many districts are not there, as you know, from the technology point of view. So this product provides sort of the best of both worlds. There's a digital component that students have access to, and then we limited the textbooks to one class set per teacher. So the students do not all get their own textbook with this. They get access to a digital component, and then there's a textbook for use in the classroom.
I see. So the kids don't take books home anymore?
Right, that basically.
Okay. What is the difference between 1 and 2? Because when you read the agenda, they read very similar, except for the dollar figure attached. They're both social studies textbooks, and they're both for the middle school, but one specifically for 8th grade.
Right. We had to divide up the order because we have to pace these out because the budget that we have for textbooks is only limited to a certain amount. So we decided to order the 6th and 7th grade in one order, and then use the next year's budget for the 8th grade.
And how long do you propose that these books will last?
Well, the books will last a long time because they're not being transported.
I'm sorry, I made a wrong phrase. Not last in a physical sense. I mean, from a teaching standpoint, how long will they be able to, will the
Well, that's the nice part about the digital piece. If you notice on the, I don't know if you got to see the order, but there's a 6-year subscription to this.
Oh, okay.
So they're going to keep updating these, and that's free.
Okay,
Because we have bought it. So
I
there's
missed-
no additional cost.
Free after you pay for it.
I missed,
The updates are free.
Yeah,
is
I
what
missed,
meant.
well, they're built in, they're not free, and it's built in, but we get them without any additional cost. Yeah. All right, good, thank you.
Would you like to make a motion, Mr. Buskard? To approve D1 and 2?
Sure, let's do that. I would like to make that motion to approve D1 and 2.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, Mr. Buskard, and that comes up to D4.
Yeah, I just would like, Dr. Ozier, you and I had a discussion about this today, and I found it very interesting. I just would like you to reiterate that discussion for benefit of everybody.
The discussion we had today was about the leave of absence piece, which is related to GEMSNet.
Yes. Just the GEMSNet,
Yeah,
what that is and how that
sure.
benefits us.
Well, GEMSNet is a science curriculum that we use in coordination with the University of Rhode Island. We use it for K through 8, and it has been tremendous for us. We spend a good deal of money on this. This is a yearly renewal. But what you get with that is all of the resources that you need, all of the kits that students use to learn math, plus all of the professional development on a regular basis for all of our staff. When you are looking, say, at the secondary level where a teacher may have a background in science, you can expect, obviously, a lot of science expertise. You don't necessarily have that at the elementary level. And this provides that. It makes all of our elementary teachers very comfortable with the science they're teaching. They're learning specifically on the kits that they're teaching to the kids. And we have seen comprehensive data that we have shown the committee year after year that the GEMSNet districts in this state are the ones performing the highest on the science assessment. So I couldn't be more pleased with the way that is going.
Awesome, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve D4.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, that brings us down to D6. Mr. Cerisi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This agenda item is the, correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. King, is the annual dues for the school committee to be part of the Rhode Island School Committee, Association of School Committees.
Correct.
And the dues are based on, for some reason, whatever our total enrollment is. In other words, I believe we're charged like per student is how they formulate the total cost of the dues.
Yeah, that's how it used to be. It doesn't say, it's not clear on the invoice that we received, but I know that that's how it used to be. This invoice does say, though, that in these costs, they're frozen at the 2009 level, so I don't know what that means. I don't know if it's the per student level at 2009 or the number of students in 2009. It's really not very clear.
Thank you. So I guess the question, a rhetorical question I would have for my fellow committee members, not so much the administration, because this is the dues that are paid for this committee to belong to the Rhode Island Association of School Committees. What have we received for $8,000 a year? And I know this is my 8th year on the committee, and if I would say we paid $8,000 a year for the last 8 years, we've spent $64,000. Speaking for myself, I can say absolutely nothing. And I don't know about my fellow committee members, but I'm getting to a point where I'm long overdue. I'm paying money into these associations and organizations and all that feel-good stuff. I'm all set. I'd much rather leave the $8,000 of the taxpayers' money in the district than use it for the school district. So I would make a motion that we do not pay this. And if that precludes us from being elite members of the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, so be it.
I'll second that for discussion.
Well, go ahead, Mr. Busgarden.
Well, Mr. Reese, you have a depth of knowledge about this that I don't have. You've been here for a long time. Mrs. Page, you as well. I don't know. Is there anything tangible that we receive from this organization? Is there anything tangible?
As far as I know, we receive access to a website that provides information on salaries and contracts across the state with other school districts, and that information is easily obtainable from our human resource office, from our legal office, or from our business office. And I know that there have been periodical trainings that have been provided up at Bryant University and Rhode Island College from the Association of School Committees. I know Mrs. Page has gone to a couple of those. I think the more important ones have been sponsored by the Attorney General's office, not the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, as far as open meetings laws and so on and so forth. So I just don't see $8,000 of value. Even if we were to say, yeah, we did attain a couple of training sessions. Whatever the training sessions are, I'm sure we could have if the committee's truly interested in attending or having a presentation, I'm sure we could have a professional organization come in and present the information or training for much less than $8,000.
Can I ask?
This is what I would say, is that I would hold off on getting rid of paying our dues until we get more information from Tim Duffy. He is our head of the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, and I would say I have partaken of a number of their training sessions every year, because they have a seminar for all new school committee members, so every 2 years that they run, that gives a lot of very good practical guidance in how school committee members should be looking, what their jobs are, the scope of their responsibilities. I don't know, Mr. Biscone, did you attend one of those? I know Mr. Thompson did when he first came on the committee, and I did. Mrs. Clark, and you did. I feel as if they do a number of things, that they invite chairs from time to time where they have special speakers in. I know I went to one in the fall about buildings. Many times they've had one given by Mrs. Carroll's firm, in which they talk about different legislative issues. And, I could go through over the years the ones I've been to on different issues that have come up at the time. The facilities one was very good that I attended. I do agree that the one by the Attorney General's office that is held every August is excellent, but that's not held for just school committee members. That's held for every person in the state who is an elected official, as well as police officers. So that's why I think that they do provide us things that we would not be able to get on our own if we but I'd like to find out more other than just the website before I'd say, I'd want to cut it short, because like I said, the training is what I do find as being very valuable, and I get to network with some of the other school committees to find out what's going on. So I attend at least 2 trainings and sometimes more than that per year.
Can I just say, I'm sorry, just add, again, to be a little bit more blunt about this, these are the feel-good boys clubs that we have around the states that we use taxpayers' money to pay dues and associations to. I'm not interested in Mr. Duffy's opinion, because Mr. Duffy would not have a job if there were no Rhode Island Association of School Committees, quite frankly. So I'm sure he's not going to stand here and tell us, no, don't pay the dues, no, don't belong to the organization, because basically the organization is his job, and the dues and the fees support the organization, which is his job. So I'm really not interested in his opinion. I know what he's going to stand here and tell us. Again, these coffee and donut organizations, it's like I'm done sitting here and taking these relentless votes to waste money. I'd rather spend $8,000 on technology or athletics or clubs or textbooks or whatnot. Ms. Carroll, I know you represent other school committees throughout the district. Is there any great I mean, will we be burned at the cross if we're not members of the Rhode Island Association of School Committees? I'm sure we'll be frowned upon, and it breaks my heart.
I know of at least one other district that has opted out of the School Committees Association.
And what happened to them? They're still in existence?
They're going to the district to get training for the credits that school committee members have to earn. My firm went in and trained them.
Great. Thank you.
Mrs. Clarkin.
I've only been serving here on the school committee for a year and a half, and I still have a lot to learn. I'm not opposed, Larry, to eliminating this expense, but I have gone to their seminars, and I do receive emails from Tim Duffy on a daily basis about legislative information. They have a monthly newsletter. So before I would want to just eliminate it, and I'm not saying that I'm opposed to it, I would like to find out just a little bit more information as to what other services we may not be taking advantage of, just for those of us who don't have as much experience as you and Mrs. Page.
I just say I'm glad you brought up the emails and the newsletters, because yes, I do receive those daily. I guess I would, I know Mrs. King is more up to speed on these matters than I am, but as far as the emails we receive daily, those are basically press releases from either Department of Ed, the General Assembly, or the Projo. It's not a unique insight that's not available to the public. It's all public information. That's daily news releases. So again, it's useful, no doubt about it. It's beneficial, but it's public information. It's something that we shouldn't be paying $8,000 a year for. It's something that you can go on the web and obtain yourself.
Well, if I wasn't stretched so thin with my schedule, I might have time to do that. It's convenient for me.
I'm just saying, in years past, when budgets are in a little bit, this is something that we probably won't even be discussing, and probably it would be voted upon without a discussion. But I'm sorry. I mean, I just continually, we continue to tighten the belt, and we will continue to do so. And we let a lot of things, we've made cuts and let a lot of things fall by the wayside that we haven't funded or haven't been able to fund. And I just can't in good conscience keep voting for things like this while we're in the midst of doing that. So.
This is a budgeted item for next year.
I know that.
But,
I know that. I'd much rather take that $8,000 of budgeted money and put it towards something in the district.
And it was the sort of thing of when it was presented to me if we were going to pay the yearly dues, I said, well, it's over $5,000. It's a question for the school committee as a whole, not for me just to decide. So I'm glad we're having this discussion. At the same time, I would say I think it's something that we ought to look in further before we say no to it.
Is there any harm in putting it off to the next meeting? Is there a deadline to pay the bill?
Well, right now you have a motion and a second, so it would be the sort of thing of...
I can tell you I've been looking at it for 8 years, and I'm ashamed of myself for sitting here voting for it for the last 7 years.
All right. So there is still the motion and the second on the table, so unless that's withdrawn, it's the sort of thing we have to take a vote.
Well, Mrs. King, is there a deadline for us this? And I can't imagine that there's going to be any kind of repercussions if we're late, right?
I doubt it. If the answer is no or late for a possible yes, I think you're probably all set.
Well, yeah, that's the way I feel. I mean, I don't know that if they're going to penalize us for being late, well then guess what? You're not getting any of our money.
Invoice is actually dated April, so it's already like.
Yes, that is. It was, yeah, it's a month late. So another 2 weeks isn't going to kill them. I would wonder. I would ask if we could table this, Mr. Cerisi. Would that be something you would consider? I can't. You have to.
Yeah, I mean, if out of courtesy and respect to my fellow committee members, I'd be, I wouldn't say happy, to withdraw my motion. I will tell you that, speaking for myself, my position and my vote will be the same whenever we get to this item. But out of courtesy to my fellow committee members, if you're looking for more information, I'd be happy to withdraw the motion and and offer a new motion to table it. But I would really just really hope that my committee members consider this. I mean, we really, you know, we have to start looking at things where, well, it's just, and like I said, no disrespect to Mr. Duffy, he does a lot of hard work, and he puts a lot of time into this. He does provide a lot of information, but again, this is information that, you know, I just don't see an $8,000 a year value to. And like I said, I don't need an email or a phone call from Mr. Duffy telling me what he does, because I know what he does. And obviously, I know he'd be advocating for us to send a check for $8,000. So I really don't need to hear that.
Well, I thank you for considering that. I tend to agree with you, Mr. Cerisi, just for the fact that Cheryl and maybe Linda want to do a little more.
Yep, no, I
research.
totally,
I have no problem with that. I mean,
totally,
it's not a life or death situation, so.
I can totally understand that. So I'd offer a motion to table this item at this time.
Until
our next meeting?
Yeah, definitely next meeting. No indefinite.
Our next business meeting, correct?
Yep.
I'll second that.
All right, so there's a motion to table this item. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, item is tabled. So that brings us to F4, Mrs. Avanzato.
Yes, actually, this is directed towards Dr. Auger. I had spoken, I should have asked you, but I actually had a conversation with Mr. Boscarden about, and I think you touched on it earlier about GEMSNet.
That's your first mistake.
This request for leave of absence, I just wanted a little bit more information for the committee's purposes on the record.
I'm going to let Dr. Humbert answer that question. She's been dealing directly with it.
So the program is built on having teachers in residence, so they have actual practitioners that they ask to have on their staff at URI where they run the GEMSNet program, and they look for potential strong educators with a strong background in science and in pedagogy. So this one staff member was recognized for that talent and was asked by Dr. Auger. They asked Dr. Auger and I if we would consider allowing her. So we checked with the principal of the school, and so she would work in that capacity to be training other teachers. And in the GEMSNet program that we pay for, the contract that we have, we do have teachers in residence that work with our staff. And this particular, would have even more collaboration because she's from our district.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
I think it does. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve F4.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, that brings us to the end of the consent agenda, and it brings us to policies. The first one we have is a policy that comes out of our technology presentation tonight. This has been recommended that we have on a login usage policy, and this policy was actually looked over by Aubrey.
Aubrey
Lobato. Okay, I couldn't remember her last name. She went through this to basically to guide us in what we needed to have as a login policy. Tonight, it would be a new policy, so it takes 2 reads. So what I would say is, if anybody has any questions about it this time, this would be the time to ask. Otherwise, we'll bring it forward as the same policy unless there are changes to be made for our next business meeting. All right, so that will just roll over. The next policy that is on our agenda is BEAR. It is our schedule of school committee meetings. And so here is the issue as to why this is before us, because we had scheduled 2 meetings for the month of November, and then we realized that November 11th is, of course, the Veterans holiday, and we did not think it would be appropriate for the school committee meeting to be on Veterans Day. And so then we got into, could we move the meeting to November 4th, but that is primary day, and so that's also a school holiday. And then the next meeting, November 25th, is right before Thanksgiving. So what that means is that we would have one meeting for November. We could always see as the time gets closer if we need another meeting and as to where it could be to bring that up. But you're also getting close to your December first biennial meeting where 4 of us won't be here anymore. So the proposal was to amend our meeting schedule that we only have one meeting in November, and if the committee needs something else, we can decide at that time. Is that acceptable to everyone?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that.
Motion to approve the amendment to policy
There.
BEA-R.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion carries. All right, so that brings us pretty much to the end of everything. We still have a bit of executive session to go into.
Correspondence. I just have a quick thing.
Oh, go ahead, Mrs. Avanzato.
I just wanted to mention I'm going to get this wrong now, the boys volleyball team and Coach Joanne Fitz, and what an amazing job the team's been doing, and how the team is supporting her in her illness, and she's inspiring the team. I sent a link to all of you on the school committee. Julia, I don't know if you got that. Did you?
Very inspiring.
Yeah, and she's just awesome. She's been here for a very long time, since I was here. Anyway, I wanted to congratulate them and best wishes to her and the team.
Yes, I was talking to one of the players this weekend because they did suffer their first loss, but he said that they're very confident in the rest of their season. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn into executive session?
So moved.
Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone.